It's time now for the KC Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's KC Ingram.
Tired of lines at the boat launch, sun damage, or not using your boat because of the hassle? Call Meridian Marina and Yacht Club because we do all the work so you can enjoy your boating lifestyle. We store your boat inside, launch it with a wash with just 30 minutes notice, and rinse it down before putting it back. Need new electronics, service, detailing, bottom paint? No problem. Our experienced certified techs will make sure your boat is in tip-top shape and ready to head to the sandbar, fishing, or the Bahamas. Call us up at 772-221-8198. That's 221-8198, or visit us online at meridianmarina.com. Also, want to remind listeners, I send out a weekly email blast that will let you know who the special in the studio guest will be every week. So you be sure to tune in or follow up with the podcast on iTunes or on Android, and you can link to those podcasts right through the website and sign up for that email on the website at the KC Ingram Show. .com. So in the studio, if you got that email, you know tonight we have Dr. Mitchell Kershner in the studio, and really important topic. And before Mitchell, we go into everything that you're involved with, we have a trailer we're going to play here real quickly from HBO called Weight of the Nation.
Weight that it is to keep weight off.
This is probably going to be the first generation of children who are going to have a shorter life expectancy than their parents.
18% of our children right now are obese.
It's not only health, it's about survival and well-being of the United States as a nation.
You don't crave broccoli, and our generation has grown up craving a Big Mac.
I want to think that there's something better for me.
Unless we're able to control this epidemic, we're going to have an abundance of chronic disease.
All of us have to be part of the solution to reduce obesity.
The weight of the nation is out of control, but we can fix that.
If we don't now take this as a really urgent national priority, we are all going to pay a really serious price.
Obesity will crush the United States in oblivion.
Very good. And Gail, Ryan, appreciate you tuning in. I see you waving hello to us this evening. Dr. Kershner, this is a really serious issue that's impacting adults and children alike here in the United States. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, first of all, thanks, Casey, for having me. And
my pleasure.
This is a topic that obviously is pretty near and dear to my heart. And I'm a local Floridian. I'm born and raised native. I did move away some years ago to go to school. I was in Portland, Oregon, where I got my naturopathic degree. And then went to northern New Mexico, where I set up private practice, and I was teaching as an adjunct faculty member at the University of New Mexico. And in that course, because it was mostly geared towards nursing program, it was really interesting as I began to notice, because I would do things outside of the normal curricula. I offered some of the students extra credit for watching Super Size Me. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but what I found was when they came back, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, I'm sure you've heard of it, they would come back and they would tell me they were not taking their kids to McDonald's as often. Some of them said no more. The reason I bring that up, because I started this track myself when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I became a vegan. For those who don't know what that is, vegan is absolutely no food from any animal or insect. In other words, a strict vegan won't even consume honey because it comes from bees.
Okay.
And that's far end. And I did that for about 9 years. And I noticed my health, total transformation. And it was that question of, just so you know, I'm 58 years old. I'm not on a single medication. I haven't done an antibiotic in 40 years. And I'm not saying that I have anything against them. What I am saying is that there's ways to create health that can prevent us from needing them unless we do. And if we do, thank goodness we have them. Just like thank goodness we have surgeries. But if you don't need them, we don't need them.
That's right.
So, for example, one of this has to do with, I got inspired when my own father, while I was in school, went to the doctor because he was having what's called right upper quadrant pain, like underneath the breast on the right side. And, he was in there and I clocked it. 6 minutes. The doctor walked in, heard what little story he was going to hear, and prescribed him to get a surgical removal of his gallbladder. Just like that. 6 minutes. And after I grabbed my jaw off the floor, I followed him out and I said, how could you have assessed that so quickly? And he said, well, it's pretty common. I said, yeah, but you didn't say anything. You did not ask him to make any kind of changes or anything. He goes, yeah, well, we're just going to get it out and that'll be the end of the problem. So I walked back in the room and I spoke to him and I said, Dad, before you do anything, let's make a couple of changes. You've lived with this long. Just give me a few weeks. Well, he died 8 years later with his gallbladder because a few dietary changes was all it took.
They make a big difference.
Makes a big difference. So the reason I bring that up and the reason that we're going to talk about the topic we are today, which is obesity. Obesity is one of those situations in our society where, look, I grew up the overweight kid. I grew up being left out of things because of my weight, picked on in the gym, in the locker room. I remember one day specifically, I literally was standing on the kickball field hoping I was going to get picked. I was the second to last kid picked on the field. And I just remember it had to be because of the looks and what that felt like. And we turn that around, and in today's world where we think about, we were mentioning just a little while ago about, it's not so much the quantity of our life. We're living longer statistically. We just increased longevity rates by a couple of years. And if you know anything about averages, on a national average, to increase our length of life by even 1 year is a huge factor because it involves so many people. But we did it, I think, by 2 or 3 years. But it's not the quantity of life that's what's important here. It's the quality.
It is.
And just like what the trailer was saying, our kids that are now growing up as obese and diabetic, and we can go into some other things shortly, it's what's going to happen to them. We're going to be the first generation to watch a significant percentage of our children die before we do as adults.
That is heartbreaking and very sad. Let me stop you for one second. We have a comment here on Facebook that I think might be interesting for you to weigh in on. And first, Nurses Take Florida, hello. They said, go nurses. Gail Ryan, she said she's on the keto diet and she's lost 33 pounds so far on it, which is fabulous. Great job, Gail. What do you think of the keto diet?
Okay, I'm going to try not to get too much on a soapbox, but it has a place. It was designed for a certain purpose, if you know anything about the history of it. Staying on it long term, I think we're going to hear some complications because of it, because it puts the body in a state of what's called ketosis. Now, a lot of people are saying that's okay. I don't think we've seen long-term outcomes of this. So you're asking your body to be in a state of acidosis. Long-term, I don't think that's very healthy, personally. So just for a little bit of background, my educational is in what's called naturopathic medicine. It's medical school, but it's a holistic approach. In other words, we look at everything. I'm not going to delineate against Western medicine or Western medications or hospitalization. I have no problem with those. In fact, again, I'm grateful that they're here. But if a diet or a lifestyle change can make a difference, why not start there? If we can prevent or not even need or avoid the surgery, why not start there? With the ketogenic diet, like a lot of these diets that are out and about, the biggest problem is people can kind of go extreme with it. Now, it's great to get set up like our caller is recommended. Lost the 32 pounds.
Yes.
But what happens long term? See, I got to tell you, Casey, I believe that there is a perfect diet. You want to know what it is?
Yes. Tell us about that. I think everybody wants to know.
Yeah. In fact, I'm writing this book right now, and it's called The Triad of Health. And it has to do with the fact that nature provided us with the right diet, the right time of the year. I mean, have you ever wondered why there's a summer squash and a winter squash? Do you ever wonder why you're not really getting watermelons to taste very good in January? Because of where they're shipped from. If you think about environmental impact, when we ship a food thousands of miles, it has to be picked early. It's not at its ripest. It's not at its most nutritional benefit. By the time we get to it, it doesn't even taste like, if you've ever tasted a real tomato coming right out of the garden.
I have, and there is a big difference. And I'm going to ask real quick because it's a question on my mind. When we are trying to get fresh food, I've heard that actually frozen foods are the best to purchase because when they freeze them, they are picked at ripeness. Where if you get fresh foods in the supermarket, they're picked early, so they don't have a chance to fully mature.
Yeah.
Is that true?
There's definitely some truth to that, especially if they're coming from farther distances. In other words, I am a strong proponent of supporting local green markets. That doesn't mean you're going to get everything. I'm not saying don't ever have a kiwi, because we don't grow kiwis around here,
Right.
but as much as you can, local is best.
And that's mature and ripe at the local farm.
Yeah, because they're picking it within days before it gets to the markets. And it also indicates, what is in season. Because we've come back to, if you have any kind of an interest in preserving our environment, that combination is shipping food. It's called food miles, how far it has to travel before it gets to our dinner plate or our plates anywhere. If you ship something like a pineapple, which, by the way, we used to grow around here, right? Pineapples and peppers and tomatoes and zucchinis. I mean, this area was huge agricultural. We could grow everything we need to sustain here, right? We really can, but not anymore. We don't. So we're shipping everything in. To get that pineapple to come from Hawaii to land over here has to be picked very early, has to get on a ship, then it has to get on trucks, then it has to. Do you know how long that takes to get here? And how many gallons of gas are burned for that to get here? And yet we get it at $3 for a pineapple or $4 for a pineapple.
Right.
But the sad part is, cut the top off and stick it in the dirt. You'll grow your own.
Right.
I've done it twice now.
Right.
They're delicious. Of course, unless the lawn people get to it before I do.
Exactly. They take a little while to grow, but
Yeah,
they are
they
the
do.
sweetest thing ever when you grow your own
Now
pineapple.
that is how
They
it's
are.
supposed to taste, just
They
like
are.
our local
They're
tomatoes.
incredibly sweet. So that makes sense if you're following the fruits and vegetables. What about if you're not vegan? What if you enjoy meat? What's the total diet? What's a really good diet that
The
average
perfect
American
diet
should be
is
following?
plant-based. If you go back in history to paleo, the real Paleolithic diet is, they looked at statistically and they looked at percentage-wise, about 30% of their diet came from meat. That was it. Because remember, they were hunting and gathering. We didn't have a gun that could shoot an animal,
That's right.
2 miles away and then have to deal with carrying it back, which of course they threw on the back of their ATVs today, right?
Right.
So, you had to carry it, which meant you had to work for your food. But 30% meat, which could be, even the size of your portion size. Because I mean, if we're looking at a portion size, if you go out to eat, most places you go is enough food on one plate for 2 people. If you get a salad and a little side and one main dish, you've got enough food for 2 people, but we're consuming it. So what we've noticed over the last 10 and 20 years is, as the plates get bigger, so do our wastes. And all we're saying is, you don't have to necessarily change a major part of your diet. Just start with shrinking the plate size a little bit. Start with eating a little slower. One of the things you'll find is the rate of our consumption is so rapid that the message that's supposed to go from the stomach to the brain to say, I've had enough, we don't hear that message until we're about 5 bites past it. Just slow down your consumption.
Mitchell, this half hour is going really quick, so I want to keep you aware of
Yep.
the time. We've probably got about maybe 10 minutes left here,
Okay.
but I'm going to jump back one more to the keto diet.
Yes.
The nurse came back and ketosis is
Mhm.
very different from ketoacidosis.
Yes. It's still a state of acidosis. It's not quite as dramatic or as traumatic or troublesome. But again, I don't think we have enough studies long term to find out how it's going to turn out.
The long term, absolutely. So I like that 1/3 of the meals can be meat based.
Absolutely.
When you go to the restaurants, I'll say it's very tough because they are huge portions. So either you have to box it up, take it home, and make it 2 meals, or don't feel guilty about leaving that half a plate. You know,
That's right.
it's I know it's an expensive meal, but it's much worse for your waistline to make sure you're finishing that plate than to just say, I can't eat all this.
Well, again, it's kind of like you pay now or you pay later.
Right.
You pay later with your health. And then when you think about the suffering, we live in a culture, we live in a country where we have access to some of the best healthcare in the world. And yet we're needing it more than other places.
We certainly are. And obesity is an epidemic. And it
is.
comes along with not only foods, but I think less exercise. There's more video games and sitting in front of the computer.
Yeah. They say today that kids' most exercise muscles are their thumbs.
Oh, yep.
Right?
Texting.
I mean, if you've ever watched some of the kids text today, I mean, literally, you can see sparks coming off the phones because they're just so fast. I don't get how they're doing it.
They're
like
very
that.
good at it.
4,000 texts a day was an average, national average.
So let's talk too about dairy. I mean, you hear, one day eggs are good for you, the next day
Yes.
they're bad. One day coffee's good, next day it's bad. Dairy is one of those issues right now. There's coconut milk and almond milk besides dairy milk. What do you think about that?
Look, the bottom line is dairy from a cow was designed for a cow. It just was. I mean, if you think about a calf that's born at 50 pounds, by the end of their first year, they weighing somewhere around 300 pounds in 1 year's time. And that's predominantly on the cow milk. The proteins and the sugars were designed to take this calf and quadruple its weight in 1 year. Now, if you take a food like that and then we start consuming it, doesn't it make sense that we're watching ourselves get larger? And it's not even so much that, but when you talk about things like hormones, because they're giving these cows a lot of hormones, they're called growth hormones, and they're doing that to increase milk production and increase their body weight because they're being sold by the pound. So if a cow goes to market and goes to slaughter and it's 1,200 pounds as opposed to 1,300 pounds, that extra 100 pounds, when you're talking about 5,000 or 10,000 cows, that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of money.
Adds up.
Yeah.
Mitchell has a website, and actually that was one of the articles I read. I posted on our event page on my Facebook page. It's healthychefdoctor.com. And that was one of the many articles and blogs you have written about was the antibiotics and hormones in our food supply and how it's affecting our children that are growing today. They're maturing much quicker.
Absolutely. It's one of the situations that we see over and over is these hormones that they're injecting into the cows, which goes into their milk that we're consuming, they're called fat-latent hormones. And what that means is that it requires fat to carry them through the system. It stores in the fat, and our bodies don't necessarily know how to break them all down very well. Sometimes it does, but it can take a while, but not if you're getting exposed day after day. And we talk about with milk and with cheese and with ice cream and with all the different components, cottage cheese and yogurt. I don't say that you shouldn't ever consume those things, but if you're going to bring dairy into the dietary regime, it really is one of those foods I highly recommend being organic or as clean as you can. There's a couple companies now that are really producing clean dairy. And again, it's all about quantity as well. The reason we bring that up is because the average age of the girls that used to start their menstrual cycle was around 12 or 13. Do you know what it is today?
I'm afraid to ask.
They're seeing girls
I've
in
heard
7 and 8 years old.
I've heard of girls being 8 years old.
Now, when they start their menstrual cycle and they start breast formation at that age, what we're starting to notice is that it's increasing their body rates of other hormones. There's 3 different types of estrogens and then the progesterone balance. By throwing that off at that age, it hasn't given their body time to mature well enough to handle those hormones. So we're starting to see an increased rate of female cancers earlier in their life.
Wow. Now, we don't exactly know what it's doing to young boys either. It obviously has to impact them. They just don't have the same cycles that a female would have. So
exactly. Well, we are seeing more feminization in women and men as well, boys as well. Okay. We're seeing breast cancer in boys. We've never seen that before, or it's been so rare. But it's, look, we both genders have both hormones. We have testosterone. Women have testosterone. Right. Men have estrogen. But it's about the levels.
If you're not balancing it properly.
Yeah.
That's when things go awry.
When people start doing hormone replacement therapy, you got to be careful because you are messing with one of the most complicated systems of our body is hormones, the endocrine system. And that's part of what caused us to write this book. My co-author and I, we got together and we said, we have to do something about this because look, if we don't make the change, it's not just the kids, right? They're going to eat what's put in front of them.
That's right.
And if we keep putting the junk in front of them, they'll keep eating it. Now, they may throw a fit that they want Captain Crunch or whatever breakfast cereal, but do you know that most breakfast cereals are so high in sugar and artificial ingredients that the body doesn't know what to do with this stuff, which is why we keep noticing the increasing body rate.
Can you hold that book up so folks can see? That's going to be coming out soon?
Yes, we have. Well, this is out in English. Yes.
Hold up. You got the.
I've got the Spanish version. No.
It's
yes, we just came out with this in Spanish.
Wonderful.
Because we really wanted to hit on all markets. Because what we have noticed over the years is that cultural, like Spanish culture, other indigenous cultures, if they eat more of their native diet, they do better. But when they're indoctrinated into the American diet, what we're noticing is they're growing the same rates as we are,
I'm
or
wishing we had
larger.
more time. We are starting to run out. But
Yep.
so Tooth Ahoy can be purchased on Amazon.
Yes.
And just a real quick synopsis.
And Barnes and Noble.
It's about eating right and also brushing your teeth and all the good stuff that it's
Well,
hard
what
to
we
get kids
did was
to do
we
right.
wanted the kids to have fun. We believe in it, and it's been shown through research. If kids are having a good time, they're being entertained, their increased retention rate goes up. So they're learning better. We wrote this book to teach them about better teeth health, but it's really, in order to take better care of your teeth, it means eating better. So it's based around the story about this captain, Pirate Pete, and his motley crew, and eating from the 7 C's, which is a standard American diet. You know, the 7 C's?
That's right.
Cookies, candy, cereal, cake, chocolate, chips, and that's a standard American diet. And what we're seeing is the standard American repercussions of that diet. So this is a fun and engaging book. It's got activities. And at the back, we even start to teach you how to read food labels in a kid's book.
So parents, again, that's Tooth Ahoy. You can go to Amazon to get that book. And especially if you're trying to raise little ones and get them to eat properly, this is a great book to share with them. Mitchell, as parents, we are so busy right now. That's part of the reason why we get the food that's not good for us, is because it's extremely convenient. So you talked about organic milk. Mm-hmm. Would you go with organics across the board? Anytime you can get an organic, would you purchase that or no?
One thing I'll indicate is a great resource. It's called Environmental Working Group, EWG.org. Now, what they do is they point out, and they have a listing there, which you can get for a slight donation, and you don't even need to, but it's called the Dirty Dozen Clean 15. Every year they come out with the most important foods to buy organic and the other ones that you don't have to worry about as much. Ideally, everything would be organic, because organic just means clean food, right?
Right.
But they come out with certain foods that are really high in pesticides. Believe it or not, things like certain berries, strawberries, are notorious for high pesticide residue. When you can, if you have to choose what you're going to eat organic, go to that list, and then dairy for sure. If you're going to include it, have it be organic. If you're going to have meat, when all possible, have it be as clean as possible. Grass-fed beef, grass-fed butter. These are, look, we don't need to be consuming as much of it. So people say it costs more, but if you're eating less of it, it balances out.
Right.
Plus you have better health.
What about something like bananas? Because there's it's got the banana covering over it, the peel. Does it need to be organic because it has that peel?
Yes, because when sprays get absorbed into the plant, which then means it goes through the plant into the food.
Okay.
With things like organic, the difference between organic bananas and non-organic is 20 cents a pound.
Okay.
It's
not much.
It's really not that much more of an investment.
And your child's and children's health is really the investment that you're investing in, and your own.
That's
but
right.
Of course, if you have kids, it's something we really have to look. And
remember,
long-term.
they're watching us.
Yes.
So if we're sitting down eating the chips, and we're asking them to eat a banana, they're sitting there going, "I don't get it."
That's right. So, healthychefdoctor.com. If folks want to reach out to you, do you have seminars, or are you able to talk at schools? How are you getting the word out besides the KC Ingram Show?
We're doing more with the book. We are getting around and doing that as well. I am available because I love to speak and educate and entertain people, and they can just reach out to via the website, as well as through the Amazon book, or get a hold of us that way.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Kershner, thank you so much for coming in this evening. This has been a wealth of knowledge. Very quickly, again, Tooth Ahoy at Amazon, great children's book to hopefully get them to start eating healthier. And of course, you're right here in town. If anybody in town needs to reach you, all the information is there on the website, healthychefdoctordr.com. So in the news, we have the News Minute for Tuesday, October 15th. After nearly 2 hours of public comment from a standing room only crowd at Stewart City Hall last night, the commissioners postponed approval of the 20-year Pelican Cafe lease until the first meeting in November. Commissioner Kelly Glass-Layton urged the commission to hash out the lease's details in public right here, right now, as the owners had requested. However, Pelican owners Paul and Linda Daly agreed to negotiate privately with city manager David Dias over the next 30 days. The city commissioners seemed firm and united in their desire to retain the Pelican Cafe with what they consider a below-market lease agreement and to allow the owners to build an outdoor pavilion, yet also seem unwilling to allow those terms to be assigned to a new owner should the Dalys sell the business. This News Minute is brought to our WSTU 1450 radio audience by Martin County Currents, your alternative source of local news.